All right, it's another Viva on the street, and it's a Friday night, so we're just going to arbitrarily call this Friday Night News with Viva on the street, because with the schedule that I have been having for the last little while and up until September 20th of the election, it's going to be enough that I will not be able to do a dedicated vlog during the day. So let's just catch up on some of the news items coming out of Canada and the world. Starting with Canada, yesterday was day one of the vaccine passport being implemented in Quebec, La Belle Province. For anybody who doesn't know what that means, it means the beautiful province, which has now been turned into what some, I'm not saying me, but some are referring to as a medical apartheid, state, province, whatever. Because it is. Because unless you show your QR code on your phone, your papers before you go into non-essential restaurants, cafes, gyms, unless you show proof of double vaccination, you will be denied entry into non-essential services. I've made the prediction before, I'm gonna make it again. This is only a matter of time before it is transposed, transfused, infused, you know what I'm saying, onto essential services. Because if the argument goes that it's necessary for non-essential services due to risk, contagion, fourth wave, whatever, it's going to be all the more true of essential services, and it's only a matter of time before they blame the fourth wave, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, to 2 years to flatten the curve, yada, 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 before they blame the fourth wave and infiltrating, inundating the healthcare system on the unvaccinated. It's only a matter of time. And then they're going to say, geez, it's so serious, we didn't realize we would have to not limit this, extend this beyond non-essential, we have to extend it to essential. It's only a matter of time, mark my words. Every fear hides a wish, but also the older you get, the more cynical you get. So yesterday was day one of the vaccine passports. What's the dog doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay. And some people were faulting me for having patronized a restaurant that was respecting the QR code, but also offering takeout services. I will patronize and I will support any business that makes accommodations, because if they don't make accommodations, I will, by definition, not be able to support or patronize them, because I will not download the app, I will not show papers before going to a restaurant, and I will not support a restaurant that requires that as their only means. I would obviously like every restaurant and every business to find an alternative that gets around this idiotic requirement objectively and outright, but it's not possible. So with that said, yeah, I will support businesses that make arrangements for those who will not abide by this, cannot abide by this, or take issue with this. But that being said, I went into Alexis Neon today. For anybody who doesn't know what Alexis Neon is, it's an indoor shopping center. It's not, look at that dog. Look at that dog right there. If I could just get in there and kiss that dog's face, I would, but can't do that these days anymore. Alexis Neon is an indoor shopping center. And I guess they have a mixture of essential and non-essential businesses in the shopping center, because I was allowed into the shopping center without having to show a QR code or papers. But within the shopping center, there was a section that was segregated off, as things tend to be under what some, but not me, refer to as a medical apartheid state. There was a section segregated off for the vaccinated, and it said, show your QR code before coming in here in order to gain entry into this location. And I had a discussion with someone who said they had been working private security for almost a decade. They have now been reassigned to vaccination passport checking, to ask people to show their papers before going to sit down. And the individual was not particularly too happy about it. Did not seem to think that this was logical, rational, or something that as an individual they supported. But hey, when one becomes beholden to, indebted to, reliant on the state and the edicts of the state, they have no choice. And from our discussion, the person said, thank you for doing what you're doing. May you do it loudly and proudly, because other members of society are not able to do it loudly and proudly. And I took that as a compliment and an obligation, because I have the freedom and the obligation to do it loudly and proudly, and I will do it loudly and proudly. It's nonsense through and through. It's unscientific through and through. It creates two classes of citizens through and through. It is divisive through and through. And I dare say the government knows it, but even if they don't, intentions aside, the outcome is the same. It is socially divisive. It creates scapegoats of the minority of the population and of the minority of the minority of a population. And if the government doesn't know it, they should. And if they do know it, they know what they're doing. But the outcome is the same. Social discord, two classes of citizens, scapegoating, and we all know where that goes in the grand history of the world, which brings us to item 3 of the evening. Jennifer Rubin, I think she writes for the New York Times. Dave Rubin always wants us to know they are not related. And it's quite clear that they're not related because they do not share any origins of the same brain. Jennifer Rubin, I think she writes for the New York Times. It's J Rubin Blogger or J Blogger Rubin on Twitter. Well, she put out a tweet which can only be construed as being a dog whistle call to violence at best and much worse at worst. And her tweet was something like, time, period, to, period, come, period, on, or come down on. The on was capitals. Unvaccinated. Time to come down on unvaccinated. And I responded to her saying, back in the Rwandan genocide, I don't remember the year right now, but back in the Rwandan genocide, I just remember watching a documentary at the time or shortly thereafter, and I remember one thing that stuck with me. Media personalities on the radio in the days leading up to the genocide, they didn't come out with overtly violent rhetoric. They didn't come out with calls to violence. They came out with dog whistle calls to violence that everyone knew what they meant. And one of the ones that stuck with me, and I remembered it to this day, I remembered it when I read that tweet because her tweet was reminiscent of that call to violence. It said, cut down the tall trees, because the Hutus who massacred the Tutsis historically were shorter for various reasons, which are very interesting, but a video for another day. And the Hutus said, cut down the tall trees, as a discreet call to violence to the Tutsis who were taller, and it led to what it led to. And it's the dehumanizing rhetoric that leads to genocide. And people are going to say, well, we're not at genocide yet. We're not. But we are certainly at the dehumanizing rhetoric of one segment of society, a minority, to the other segment of society. And we have people with big followings, blue checkmark followings on social media, making these dog whistle tweets, which are objective and in your face. And they're doing it with not just with impunity, without sanction and without shame. Oh, we gotta do this. We're running. Come on, what's it? Come on, man. Come on, let's do this. And it's dangerous, it's divisive, and I would dare say it's deliberate. Because right now it has become cool, it has become acceptable, it has become almost encouraged, not just to demonize the unvaccinated, a minority, and minorities within minorities for various reasons. It's become cool also to wish their death, to suggest that they do not deserve to be cared for, to say that they should literally be allowed to die or worse. And it's what happens when rhetoric is allowed to be taken to the next level. And, not divisive rhetoric against the leaders, political rhetoric. No, this is rhetoric targeted at the followers. And it has consequences. It has had historical consequences for a reason. And people are just turning a blind eye right now because they are so whipped up into a frenzy of panic that they're pretty much willing to accept, tolerate, and permit anything without a second thought, because they have been whipped up to think that the unvaccinated are not just COVID positive, ready to transmit, but they're so dangerous that if they don't get vaccinated, they are an immediate existential threat, not just to them, but to their children, and they are putting us all at risk, to quote our wonderful Justin Trudeau.
They are putting at risk their own kids, and they're putting at risk our kids as well. Those people are putting us all at risk.
Those people are putting us all at risk.
And it's a dangerous, dangerous path that we're on. It's a dangerous path that has been put into place and encouraged by the government through policy, law, and now we are seeing the way it reflects itself in social media, in the media, and at some point it has to come to an end or it comes to a head. and I'm just hoping it comes to the former before it comes to the latter. So with that said, that is the Viva on the Street Friday evening news update. Winston, what do you have to say? The dog has no idea what's going on in the world. He just enjoys smelling the air, seeing other dogs, and he wants to go do his business right now. But that is it. So with that said, you know what to do if you want to support the channel. All the links are in the pinned comment. Subscribe, like, share, you know, all that other stuff. Barnes and I, you know where to find us. But more important than any of this, actions have consequences, words have consequences, and it is time for everyone to start appreciating that, even if the blue check marks mainstream media who thrive on rage, clickbait, clicks, don't appreciate it, even if they thrive on the discord and the divisiveness that they are imposing on the rest of the world. We should all take a step back, tune it out, turn it off, and make them irrelevant, because they are ultimately, humanity is unified above and beyond the forces that want to seek discord and disunity because they make so much money off of it. With that said, thank you. Like, share, subscribe, and yada, yada, yada. Peace.